out of the trees by Saraswati, goddess of knowledge, wisdom, and art, whom you may see with a sitar and white lotus, or alone with her many arms, representing the many possibilities of imagining, but always, always sitting by water.
Sometimes people ask me, do you think it's okay to write about like a lot of the same subjects for your whole life? Yes, I do. Obviously, I do. Because I've been writing about human beings and my father, my mother, all my life. And I keep learning new things about them.
So there's that kind of psychic link that the writer kind of dips into knowledge that the writer doesn't consciously have.
This is well, you're doing research not knowing exactly what you're looking for, but you'll know it when you find it. And
so, I'm saying they take a lot of work, they take a lot of research, a lot of, so yeah, you need to really find, and you don't look for it, it just comes to you.
And I think isn't every form of fictional imaginative writing some kind of form of active imagination? And I think Jung talked about it being sort of quite artistic in that sense.
The difference you notice between just simply gazing at an image to stepping inside the image. What was that experience like?
The use of comics as a primary source in historical research attests to the medium's ability to provide snapshots not only of collective mentalities, but, I would suggest and argue, a keyhole through which the concerns of the group, and perhaps even a group psyche, may be glimpsed and critically assessed.
But I feel like the journey of the language of the poem and discovering something about something else, illuminating something by using the art.
The division in Cyprus between the North and the South is in academia. Academia has really been the only place where I felt that's happening. The problem is that doesn't really impact the mainstream or people's kind of general thinking about how they identify.
So the transference between history and archaeology to writing is actually fairly natural, because when you're, regardless of what form you're dealing with, it's about people. It's about understanding the lives of others, lives that you may not otherwise have access to.
Yeah, it must be a lot of fun playing around with history, shuffling things around.
It is. And when it all comes together, it's just, as any writer will tell you, when a lot of elements come together and suddenly you see the world expanding in a wonderful way, it's just, it's a great writing day.
There is a moment, it's almost scientific. It's almost science when everything falls together. Yeah, I think maybe all of you have these kind of moments. Yeah. Otherwise, sometimes it's just not there. You have to give up. But if you just keep digging, maybe you will be lucky.
I think that questioning the separation of word and image is important because it's at the root of some problematic ideas about the role that the body plays in the construction of meaning.
Actually, I deeply believe it, because is in a research, then is a duty. To be an artist is the aim of our life.
Everything I see in medicine carries over into my poetry, unconsciously or consciously. I don't specifically sit down to use it, but I'm a part of all that I have met. And
going back to physics, if an equation is not beautiful, it must be wrong. And in poetry, it is said that poems should delight and surprise.
Years and years after that, I discovered that something there in medicine that's very close to poetry.
I can't help but feel the way different principles and forces and different discourses kind of come together and they move in and out of each other, and you can't sort of partition them.
Obviously, as a biographer, one of your jobs always is to try and say who someone was, and to try and get inside their head and trying to get inside their life and look at their ideas.
When you're writing characters, you do in the end kind of speak in their own voice. You know how they're going to talk.
I don't put a lot of guns in my stories, but if I put a gun in a story, I research the hell out of that gun.
You know, I do a ton of research, you know, obviously clothes and advertisements and so forth. But I have to say that I love doing that. I get lost in it and I have to always rein myself in and say, hey, you found the detail you needed. Now get back to the scene that you're writing.
I could research till the cows come home, literally. That's what I love to do. And I can get caught up in it. And I'm following a line of research.
Little tiny bits of research you do, and then there's that in-depth stuff where into the Celts or, you know, into a fine antique. Then a little.
If you're more of a pantser and you get more of your energy out of that, it might be more productive for you to just do the research, but don't write the story. Do that live. No, just sit down and kind of flow.
And I was doing some research that Joe might do, and I came across a poem. Talk about interstellar bats. Talk about research angels.
You write the first draft with maybe a bit of research. And I often research using children's books because they often explain things simply. And then you just dive in and write what I call the 0th draft, which is going to be crap, mostly crap.
Admire a dream than to turn it into a poem. So the dream becomes a piece of art that is kind of revered. And it also attributes new aspect to the dream. So perhaps entirely new possibilities are discovered through the writing of the poem.
Might we conceptualize the relationship between the I and the variety to be perceived as dialectic, mutual,